Hey everyone, welcome back. This is an updated video on how to connect to Amazon's AWS Redshift for Mule 4. I made this video based off of a comment that I had from another viewer on issues they were having with the previous version. So this is just an update for Studio 7.4.2 showing how to connect to Amazon's Redshift environment. Okay, let's go ahead and switch over to Studio. Okay, so within Studio, I've got a blank project. We're gonna go ahead and kind of start fresh and build this. I've dropped in the database component into the palette already, and we're gonna just build a similar flow to the previous project. So we've got an HTTP listener. The default is gonna go ahead and listen on port 8081. For the path, let's just go ahead and set it to be records. And we'll save that. And then for the database component, we're going to go ahead and drop in the select statement, and then let's go ahead and connect or set up the connector configuration. This is probably the part that most people are interested in kind of finding out how to set up the connection with Redshift. So under the connection, let's go ahead and select generic connection. And then for the JDBC driver, what we can do within Mule 4 and Studio 7 is actually add the Maven dependency. So if you know the information for the Maven dependency, you can go ahead and drop that in there. If you don't, you can go to something like MVN repository and find the declaration that you need to paste in there. So in here, let's go ahead and copy this, switch back over to Studio, and then click on Configure, Add Maven Dependency. And on the right side here, we can go ahead and remove this and just drop in that declaration. And it's going to go ahead and populate the artifact definition for you automatically. And when you click on Finish, it's going to pull down that jar file into your project, right? There, unlike the previous version with Mule 3 and Studio 6, you actually had to go and download the jar file, add it into your project, and then add that to your configuration. In Studio 7, right, you have the ability to go ahead and just add in the Maven dependency, and it'll pull that into your project. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is add in the connection details. If you have your Redshift environment detail screen up and running here, over here on the right, what we can do is find the connection details that we need to actually connect to this Redshift environment. So here's the Redshift connection string. If we go ahead and click on View All Connection Details, it'll be the first URL or first connection string up here on the top. So we can go ahead and click on Copy, and then switch back over to Studio and paste that into the URL. And then for the driver class name, so we need to go ahead and add that in here. We can go ahead and type in amazon.amazon, and then we can do driver, and then we'll go ahead and select the JDBC 4.2 driver here and click on OK. And I'll go ahead and populate that field. And then in here, let's go ahead and type in your username and password for your Redshift environment, and then click on Test Connection. And if everything was set up correctly, it'll go ahead and return back a message saying that the test connection was successful. Okay. And we'll click OK, click OK. And then we need a SQL query now. So if I have one here, I've set up already. This is for a contact table within the Redshift environment. Let's go ahead and copy that and paste that into the query text field here. And then with DataSense, of course, it's going to go ahead and grab the metadata for this specific object, and you can see that it pulls back the metadata in relation to that table within the Redshift environment. We'll click on Save, and the last thing is what we want to do is just take that data that's coming out of the database and transform it into a format that can be displayed on the browser, right? So let's just switch this over to JSON, take out these brackets here, and just have it spit out the payload and convert it straight to JSON. We'll click on Save, and then let's go ahead and run it. So we'll go ahead and right click on the canvas, click on Run Project, and then save the project and let it build. And we'll give it a couple seconds here while it builds out. Okay, now it's deployed. What we're going to do now is switch back over to the browser. Let's open up a new tab and go to localhost records. And if everything was set up correctly, you can now see that here is the data coming from your Redshift environment. That's leveraging the database connector from MuleSoft. And then if we come back over here to dbeaver and look at the data, right? This is the data that's being pulled out of the Redshift environment and then output as JSON data, okay? So hopefully I gave you a good quick run through on how to set up the database connector to connect to Redshift. Again, it's pretty straightforward, very similar to kind of Mule, the setup within Studio 6 and Mule 3, but this time we're leveraging Maven to actually pull in that dependency, so it saves you the trouble of having to download that jar file and then add it into your project. If you have any questions or run into any issues, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always here to help.